Peace Report, I'm Amy Goodman. In Florida, Senator John McCain scored a big win over Mitt Romney in the state's Republican primary Tuesday. McCain got 36% of the vote to Romney's 31%. The win positions McCain as the Republican frontrunner heading into Super Duper Tuesday on February 5th with contests in more than 20 states. Meanwhile, Rudolph Giuliani finished a distant third with 15% of the Florida vote, just ahead of Mike Huckabee at 14%. Giuliani, who had staked his candidacy on a strong showing in Florida, is widely expected to drop out of the race today and endorse Senator McCain. McCain's win gives him all of Florida's 57 delegates to the national convention, the biggest prize of the campaign to date. McCain and Romney had split the last 4 of the nominating contests. With McCain winning South Carolina and New Hampshire and Romney carrying Michigan and Nevada, Huckabee won in Iowa. Speaking to supporters in Miami, McCain said he was looking forward to Super Tuesday.
My friends, in 1 week, we will have as close to a national primary as we've ever had in this country. I intend to win it and be the nominee of our party. I intend to do that by making it clear what I stand for. I stand for the principles and policies that first attracted me to the Republican Party when I heard in whispered conversations and tap codes about the then governor of California, who stood by me and my comrades, and who was making quite a reputation for standing by his convictions no matter the changing political winds or thought and popular culture. When I left the Navy and entered public life, I enlisted as a foot soldier in the political revolution he began. And I am as proud today to be a Republican conservative as I was then.
While most of the attention in Florida was on the Republicans, Democratic voters gave Senator Hillary Clinton a victory in a virtually uncontested race. The Democratic Party had stripped Florida of its delegates as a punishment for moving its primary earlier in the year. None of the candidates campaigned in the state, but Clinton went to Florida yesterday and claimed it as a big win.
I am thrilled to have had this vote of confidence that you have given me today. And I promise you, I will do everything I can to make sure not only our Democratic delegates seated, but Florida is in the winning column for the Democrats in 2008.
For more on the Florida primary, we go to Miami to Jim DeFede, host of a news show on radio station WFTL in South Florida, also a commentator and reporter for CBS News in Miami. Jim DeFede, your response to what happened last night, a surprise? What were the main contests between the Republicans?
Well, it was clearly a decisive win for McCain. I think people who were expecting it to be a lot closer were surprised at the end of the day by the margin. Really, what won it for McCain is I mean, it's amazing. The Hispanic vote broke heavily for McCain. Exit polling shows he got about 51% of the Hispanic vote compared to only 15% for Romney. South Florida went 2-1 for McCain over Romney. McCain also cobbled together a great coalition of military in the Panhandle and moderates in the center part of the state. So it was an impressive win for McCain, who really put together the type of coalition you haven't seen in Florida in a long time.
And there were also other issues that were voted on by people in Florida.
Well, the economy is the #1 issue in Florida. That was proved again with exit polling, but we knew it even going into it. The economy is very bad in Florida. The housing market's hit here particularly hard. And there was an amendment on the state constitution on the ballot to lower property taxes and allow homeowners to take the savings from their current homes with them to new homes if they moved, a measure called portability. The Governor Charlie Crist, really staked a lot on that campaign, put it on his back, and really fought hard for that. That's one of the things that why you saw a record turnout in Florida for the election, and that passed 64%, with 64% voting in favor of that property tax amendment. That was driving a lot of people to the polls as well.
The other big news of the day was the campaign of Rudolph Giuliani. After suffering lopsided losses in all the early voting states this year, Giuliani had staked his candidacy on a strong showing in Florida. He campaigned more in Florida than anywhere else. He outspent his rivals on TV ads over the last month. After placing a distant third in the race, he was non-committal about the future of his candidacy. At a rally in Orlando, he thanked his supporters and talked about his campaign in the past tense.
The responsibility of leadership doesn't end with a single campaign. If you believe in a cause, it goes on, and you continue to fight for it, and we will. You don't always win, but you can always try to do it right, and you did. That's what the American people deserve, a return to honesty and substance in our political discussion. America needs to stay on offense to win the terrorist war on us. It's not optional. We can't wish it away. We can't hope it away. It's there. It's a reality. And America must always remember that the best way to achieve peace is through overwhelming strength.
Top aides to Giuliani have been quoted as saying he intends to drop out of the race as early as today and endorse John McCain. Wayne Barrett is also with us. He's senior editor at The Village Voice, where he's been covering politics for over 20 years, the author of many books, including Rudy, an investigative biography of Rudolph Giuliani. His latest book is Grand Illusion, the untold story of Rudy Giuliani and 9/11. Wayne Barrett joins us here in our Firehouse studio. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Wayne. Were you surprised?
Well, I wasn't surprised that he lost in the end. I was surprised by the total collapse. I think it may be the greatest collapse just in the age of polls. It may be the greatest collapse in presidential primary history. Gary Hart is a competitor, but he had a blonde on his lap. And somehow Rudy, without the blonde, managed to just drop really from heights that were unprecedented. He was leading the national polls for almost an entire year, and then he winds up can't win a single state, usually comes in single digits. This is the first time he came in double digits, and wiped out really before any of us would have anticipated, I think, a month or two ago. Now, you've been one to say that Rudolph Giuliani did not stake his election on Florida originally. Right. Well, look, he had 10 full-time staff people in Iowa. Romney had 12. He made an effort there. He realized he wasn't going to win. He pulled out at the end. New Hampshire, he made a full-fledged effort. He spent $3 million on advertising. He had people in Bay Ridge and Brooklyn. He had people in Staten Island. Every single weekend, busloads of them were going up to New Hampshire. So he was doing everything he could do to win in New Hampshire or to place well. And he was just... How many times was he there in New Hampshire? He did 124 appearances in New Hampshire. And yet the media said that he was conceding in New Hampshire. Yes, he didn't want to spend time there. The national media kind of adopted his line when it looked like... I mean, he was actually in New Hampshire the day of the primary. He usually tried to leave before the day of the primary, but he was afraid to leave New Hampshire the day early, as he did in other states, because he thought he would lose to Ron Paul, as he did in many other states. He actually beat Ron Paul in New Hampshire by 2,000 votes. But he was no question, he made a real effort in New Hampshire, and then he kind of retreated into this stated strategy of, I'm saving it all for Florida. He didn't save it all for Florida. He was routed everywhere else, and then he was routed in Florida. Jim DeFede, how was he perceived there? How was he perceived in Florida?
Well, you said before he spent so much time in Florida, and that actually ended up hurting him, I think, in the end. The more voters got to know Rudy Giuliani, and the Republican voters got to know Rudy Giuliani and his positions, the less they liked him. He rode a big wave early on because of name recognition. That was all that really was. But once they got to start talking to him, hearing about him, hearing from him, they didn't like him. And that's what ended up costing him at the end of the day. The more he talked, the more they ran away from him.
Wayne Barrett, the Rudolph Giuliani, do you think it was conveyed in the press? And what do you think they miss most? And the significance, if all the predictions are true, that he will throw his support to McCain, who spoke of him extremely fondly last night?
Yes, I mean, they had some bitter exchanges during the campaign. Remember, over Bernie Kerik, when the indictment of Bernie Kerik,
the former police
commissioner, when that came down, John McCain went right after Rudy and held Rudy, I think, completely justifiably, fully accountable for trying to make Bernie Kerik the Homeland Security Secretary. And then Rudy's one of his top surrogates, Randy Mastro, who used to be a deputy mayor, shot back at John McCain. There were some testy moments. But by and large, they've had a long-term relationship. I certainly expect that endorsement to happen. But, you know, Rudy Giuliani, let's at least for once say something good about the national press. They did its job. I mean, everybody from the Chicago Tribune to Time Magazine to Vanity Fair to the New York Times broke stories about Giuliani partners. It was like a Gary Hart dare because Rudy refused to say who his clients were. The press went out and did its job. It found one client after another, the Wall Street Journal. Everybody chipped in, a good story after good story. And I think those stories, if you look back at Tim Russerd's interview on Meet the Press, I think it was just an extraordinary interview in which he took Giuliani apart. I've never seen Giuliani fumble like this in a national press interview. And Tim Russert did one scandal after another. And I think it just chipped away at Giuliani one step at a time. And for once, the National Press Corps really went out and did some solid